Hello and welcome to my quandary. My absolute most favorite superhero team of all time is the Avengers. I've loved them back from the 70s, actually even going back to their beginnings in the 60s, but I've been wanting to get caught up on the current goings-on of my favorite team, and as I have been reading it, I have found myself kind of lost because I don't know what's going on with the major characters that make up the core of the Avengers. Lucky for you, dear viewer, that has led to a whole batch of single issue reviews. After the opener, I'll tell you all about it. So welcome back to Kevin's commentary on comics. Yes, I have hit obstacles as I am trying to read the Jonathan Hickman storyline that is going on within the latest reboot of the Avengers. Well, maybe not the latest reboot, but the more recent reboot of the Avengers and its sister title, The New Avengers. I know that these stories are the seeds that make up the Secret Wars events, which I do want to read, but, I want to have some continuity background, as it were. So I'm trying to get wrapped up in the stories that are going on in the core Avengers title that consists of gardeners and map makers and builders and incursions and all this other stuff. But as I'm trying to absorb all this stuff, and it's fairly deep, a long plotted out storyline. I mean, basically from Avengers Volume 5, Issue number 1, straight up through to when Secret Wars starts, that's basically one big storyline. So as I'm trying to read this, and then when I hit a character who has changed rather significantly within this core Avengers storyline, I'm taken out of my reading enjoyment, wondering, hey, what happened? Yeah, I know Sam Wilson is now Captain America, no longer the Falcon. But what was the story that led to that? So there's Iron Man in his silver armor that is the superior Iron Man armor. But what led to that? These questions, again, as I said, take me out of the story, and I find them to be kind of distracting. So I decided I need to get caught up. So you see, when you read the Avengers, you are really also reading the main characters of the Avengers, which is Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, and probably to a little bit of a lesser extent, the Hulk. Knowing what's going on in their books makes it easier to read the Avengers, the core Avengers titles, because you know what's going on. Is it necessary to understand the story? No. As a matter of fact, I would say even if those developments did not occur in their individual books, the storyline that Jonathan Hickman is writing could go on. So, thanks to having the Marvel Universe subscription service, it's easy for me to get caught up. And I decided that I would find these key issues that help me get things right with the core Avengers title, and then do a review based on those key issues. So I'm going to start with Thor, because I think he probably has, well, I want to say he has the most significant change, but I think the fact that Sam Wilson is Captain America is probably maybe even more significant, but decided to start with Thor. In the original Sin storyline, Nick Fury whispers something to Thor that suddenly made him unworthy to hold his hammer, Mjolnir. I'm going to try to pronounce that right. Mjolnir, the hammer. And then all of a sudden he's gone to being shirtless and carrying an axe. So what happened? Well, to find out, not only did I have to read all of the original Sin event, which I had already done, so I knew he had lost the use of his hammer. But then I also read the Loki and Thor Original Sin tie-in series, as well as the main Thor books. I got to the end of all that and still had a lot of questions as to just exactly what is going on. It turns out that the answers to most of my questions, or at least to where Thor is, to where I am reading the current Avengers run from about a year ago, is resolved by looking at the latest volume of Thor featuring the female Thor. So Thor number 1 is what we're going to take a look at today. So we start out with a deep sea exploration being done by Roxxon, the oil power conglomerate that has mostly been considered evil in the Marvel Universe. Matter of fact, we referenced them at the end of the Project Pegasus saga review that I did a few weeks back. And they're investigating some unusual seismic activity going on deep, deep into the sea. So it turns out that the reason for all this seismic activity are some frost giants making their way across the ocean floor and basically kind of attacking the sea exploration unit and then also the sea lab itself. So Roxxon, in order to battle these frost giants, unleashes their attack sharks. Now let's just pause for a second here and absorb this. Attack shark. Take a look at this picture. Are you telling me we're not looking at sharks with frickin' laser beams on their head? I love it. It's corny, but it's funny. Of course, the frost giants take no time in getting rid of the attack sharks and also attacking the actual sea lab itself. So we end there with a little bit of a cliffhanger, and we move to really the opening of the story, which is called If He Be Worthy. We have this shot of Thor agonizing as he's trying to lift his hammer off the surface of the moon. And then the next two scenes that we see here are really powerful as well. Odin walking up behind Thor as he's on his knees in front of Mjolnir, praying it will allow him to lift the hammer once again. Now this is a really nice reflection upon the bond between Thor and his hammer. It's not just a weapon. I mean, it is conceivably a part of him, and it always has been a part of him. I mean, sure, we've seen stories where other people have been worthy enough to wield the hammer, but have we seen a story where Thor was not worthy enough to wield the hammer? We've had humility lessons for Thor, such as when he had to be Don Blake, but from what I remember, and I certainly may have missed something along the way, I don't think we've ever explored him not being able to lift the hammer because he was unworthy. Maybe a spell or a force field around the hammer or something may have prevented him from getting to it, but the essence of him being unworthy, I think, is new territory. Now, I could be wrong, and if I am wrong, please leave a comment below and let me know what I should be reading to get caught up on this, but from my mind, this is new territory. So anyway, begging the hammer didn't work. Thor still couldn't lift it. In fact, even Odin himself could not lift it. Seems that the enchantment that makes the bearer of the hammer needing to be worthy in order to hold it has kind of taken a life of its own and is now is even stronger than the person who put the enchantment on it himself, which is Odin, of course. Thor's mother, Freya, says that Thor needs to just forget about the hammer and continue being the hero that he is. So while this is all going on, Odin's crows, Hugin and Munin, I'm probably really butchering the pronunciation of these names, but the crows give word to Odin that on Earth, or Midgard, the frost giants are attacking. So Thor says we need to go to the Hall of Weapons and then to Earth. A very somber Thor, for sure. Not all gusto, let's go get him. He knows he's got a challenge because he's obviously not nearly as powerful as he used to be. And just as he walks away, Odin turns to Freya, Thor's mother, and says, listen, the reign of the All-Mother is over, and Odin's back in charge. Now, for those unaware, Odin, he was out of action as being the All-Father and leader of Asgard, and Freya had taken over. But now Odin is back, and he wants his throne back, of course. So Freya thinks about that and says, yeah, well, maybe you're right. Maybe there's something should be done. And she looks at the hammer. Meanwhile, back on Earth, the Roxxon lab is visited by Malekith the Accursed, who wants to know where something is and starts killing these guys because they don't know what he's talking about. Finally, one guy gives a good answer of like, let me find out for you. And he's like, okay, good, but we don't really actually know what it was he was looking for. So while that mystery is going on, Thor arrives, wielding an axe, riding a flying goat, and attacking the frost giants. He gets smashed into the lab, he faces Malekith, and because obviously Thor, like I said before, is not at his prime, Malekith pretty much takes care of Thor basically by chopping off his left arm. Yeah, says, hey, if you don't have to carry that hammer anymore, you certainly don't need your arm. Seems like a bit of a jump in logic, but hey, Malekith is crazy, in addition to being accursed. So at this point, I now know why Thor has a robot mechanical arm that I saw in the pages of the Avengers. So I am officially caught up on Thor as far as where I am within the Avengers books that I'm reading. But the story isn't over. Malekith leaves Thor behind, short an arm, and decides that, well, Thor's not worth it anymore. He's done. He's finished. Let's go off and continue doing whatever it is that we're doing. And we cut to Mjolnir, the hammer, resting on the moon, and a shadowy, decidedly female form walks up to it and whispers, "There must always be a Thor." She reaches down, grasps the hammer, lifts it up, and boom, we have a goddess of thunder. But who is it? Well, that has actually already been revealed, and is, in fact, I do know who it is because thanks to the internet, there's no such thing as keeping a secret. So I do know who it is. I don't know how she got the hammer, and I'm not going to reveal who it is just in case you haven't read it yet. But I do know who it is, and this is the point. Even though I know things have changed, I still want to know what the story is behind it. That's really the key. You may get spoiled on certain events. Okay, Sam Wilson is now Captain America, but what was the story behind it? Same here. Thor is now holding on to an axe, and there's a female Thor, but what's the story behind it? Well, I'm going to find out what that is because I'm going to continue to read Thor. But what I don't know is what was whispered to Thor that made him unworthy. What did Nick Fury say to Thor that made him unworthy? I don't know if that's been revealed yet. Maybe it has in the pages of Thor. Maybe it has in the pages of the Avengers. It's possible that this hasn't even been revealed yet and it's still an ongoing storyline. And next up, I want to get caught up on Captain America and Iron Man and maybe the Hulk as well. So my next 2 episodes, maybe even 3 if I throw a Hulk one in there, will be on what I consider to be the key issues, the one single key issue that explains why the characters are where they're at in accordance to where I am at with the Avengers. It's the only way I know how to tie in a nice little ongoing 1-issue review session with you guys, okay? So in the meantime, I'm Kevin, and that was my commentary. What do you think of Thor being unworthy of holding on to the hammer? And if you do happen to know what was whispered to Thor, please do not leave a comment below because I'd prefer to find this out on my own. If you want to tell me that it hasn't been revealed yet, I'm okay with that. That's fine. Don't want to know the specifics if it has been revealed, though. But what do you think about the female Thor? Obviously, if you're a Thor reader, you know who that is. And like I said, I know who that is. So stick with me as I get caught up on my beloved Avengers. And the best way to do that is to do that subscribe thing. Click on right down there and you will get, I believe, an email notification every time I post a new video. And if you don't, at least you're subscribed. And when you go to YouTube and you see your homepage, you'll see my latest episode showing up right there. It's really the best way for you to be worthy of seeing my episodes. Like, you have to be worthy to see me babble on about comics that have been out in the public domain for quite some time. If you like it, click subscribe. In the meantime, go out and make it a great day, and I will see you later.